Hey everybody, Alex, healthhacksreview.com. So this video is about the difference in quality control standards and maybe why you should think about choosing to purchase from a sauna company that produces their own sauna, meaning they act as the manufacturer, versus a company that's hired a third-party factory, a factory they do not own, composed mostly of staff that is not their own, and those are the main differences right there. And so that is one way you could divide up the whole sauna market, all the sauna companies, between companies that will make their own product themselves, you understand that piece, and then one where they're hiring out to third-party factory. And generally, almost all the time, that factory, or factories I should say, are overseas, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but the point is they're usually overseas, and they usually make saunas, produce saunas for multiple other companies. Okay, and so sometimes a good example where you can just even see it visually, sometimes two different brand saunas look identical except for the label on it. That would be a perfect example of what I mean. Just a factory that's a third-party factory and is making for multiple brands. Now, sometimes you can't tell though. There's a sauna that may look a little bit different, but it's coming from the same manufacturer. It's just that ultimately some of these companies can provide additional specifications or alterations, something like that, to tweak and make their sauna a little bit different in some way. Generally, you'll see that with tier 2 saunas. So what's the whole big deal about maybe choosing a company and purchasing from a sauna company that produces their own sauna? It's very simple. In general, if you actually look at the history, well, it's not that easy to get that information, but in the history of this industry, generally companies that currently, as of today, produce their own saunas, act as the manufacturer, make their own product, a lot of times had started out hiring a third-party factory to basically do it for them. But a lot of these companies will learn very quickly that there's a lot of gray areas. There's a lot of problems that can pop up when you're essentially trusting a third-party factory to do the work for you. And for that very reason, because quality control standards will start to waver, is especially if it's an overseas factory, you really have to have somebody permanently working from the company, usually a couple people because factories are large, watching all the production runs and making sure that those quality control standards and everything is built exactly how the company that hired that factory has specified. And I can tell you right now that I'm not bad-mouthing or putting down necessarily and saying all sauna companies that hire a third-party factory, stay away from, they're terrible. I'm not saying that whatsoever. But I am pointing out that if that is the case, it's very crucial that that company, the sauna companies, have some sort of individual working over there in the factory, observing and watching the production runs. If that's not the case, there's just potential. I'm not saying it's absolutely this way, but a lot of issues pop up in the area of trusting these factories, and or just mistakes happen, all kinds of things happen, because a lot of these factories are producing thousands of saunas, a lot of saunas for various companies. Okay, so it's a busy operation over there. Most companies don't have either the capital or they don't want to even spend the money. They just don't care to actually have somebody stationed over there. It depends on the size of the company. Some might be small and they just can't afford to have somebody over there. But either way, in my mind, the more ideal solution for having full control over every aspect of your product is to be the producer, be the manufacturer itself, of which there's very few in this industry. And you can actually also further rank companies by how much of the product do they actually manufacture. Does this company manufacture 100% of their product? Do they act as the individual selecting from the different suppliers? Do they do that all themselves? Are they just taking 80% of the supplies and they're relying on somebody else for B and C part there? Are they just doing 70% and then they're obtaining again something prefabricated or whatever from some other parties? You can actually rank saunas that way if you want to have done things like that as well. And when you get towards the highest end of the spectrum, 90, 100%, again, to my mind, I think there's only a couple brands out there that actually are in that category. So The other aspect of that is, regardless of how much of the sauna they're making, also asking to see quality. You don't have to always do this, but this is something I've done, is ask for, different sorts of status sheets on production runs, quality control standards, basically. And they should have kind of all those different reports. A lot of companies don't want to provide that. Sometimes it's just too difficult if it's a third-party factory for them to provide that information. But that is a kind of a way of looking at the actual incidences of issues, and so on and so forth. And so now, in addition to that kind of analysis that I do, it's a type of meta-analysis, is when you're actually looking at the different sorts of sauna brands, you also want to check how much of the sauna, the product, is being third-party validated. Okay, so think about that for a second. Even in the situation where a company is exercising way more control over making their product, maybe they do 85% of it, okay, and maybe they are producing at their own facility. That's good. However, it doesn't just end there. That's definitely a solid, good start for sure to start to investigate that company. But then we want to also ask, well, how can I still trust that company, right? They seem very trustworthy. I've seen the product. It seems to be very good. I trust so-and-so practitioner. They recommend that product. But can you really discern in this moment and trust that company? How do you trust that company? So it's actually easy. If I'm evaluating, brand B over here, how can I trust that company? Well, I'm not going to expect to see, and I don't really want to see, some information or documents that are sent on the company letterhead. That's all well and good, and some companies don't even care. They won't even send you that. But the way you can trust a company fully is if any questions that you have regarding the basics of a sauna and of the product, if they are answered by third-party organizations. So if the claims that they're making about their product, if all the different aspects of it are validated, certified, and backed up again by third-party organizations. Okay, so a lot of people are familiar with a page on a website, sauna site, that says certifications. We're certified by, ETL and all those sorts of different aspects. Correct. Now, some sauna companies don't even provide that, or just have a fraction of the certifications. The other thing you do want to check too, while we're on the subject, is if you're really serious about evaluating, like say you broke it down, and again, you can do this with me, because I help people make these purchase decisions and actually help them buy a sauna. But if we get it down to maybe say 3 choices or whatever, a lot of times what you also have to look, believe it or not, is they're listing that third-party certification organization. Now let's check that third-party certification organization and actually see if that company is listed. And I know it seems mind-blowing, but even some like high-profile brands, high-profile just mean they have more brand recognition in the industry, they might advertise a lot, are not actually listed under some of these organizations that they're claiming. That's a big no-no. So you always do want to actually look up and say, okay, well, don't just take their word for it. Yes, we're validated, we did this test. Actually, then you can usually go on to the certification or organization site and try to find that company and try to find the record, okay? So we could also rank saunas based off of how much of their product are they actually getting third-party validated, to the point where, and then if we actually check out those organizations to find that validation is legit, great. I don't really have to then, trust that a company did construct their sauna and say there's no off-gassing. I could know, 90% about what goes on with that construction through other means of getting that information. But at the end of the day, to be 100%, right, positive that there's absolutely no off-gassing inside the cabin, I would have to rely on a third-party organization, somebody who's totally unbiased, who tests all kinds of companies. That is extremely important if you're the individual who requires 100% peace of mind. I'll be honest, not everybody does require that, and sometimes it means going to a higher budget, a higher price point to get that validation. Not always. There's plenty of overinflated sauna prices in this industry. Definitely, that's something to keep in mind. But again, if you're 100% peace of mind, I need to know there's no gray areas whatsoever. Well, in that case, we can't just rely on what a sauna company is claiming, okay? We have to find other outside sources of information. So that is another way you can rank and rate all the different sauna companies. And that's a very non-subjective, quantitative, objective way of doing so. And that is something that I've gone through as well. So if you have more questions about this, maybe some sauna brands you're evaluating, if you need help even getting to that point, I'd be happy to consult with you, educate you. I don't charge for what I consult, but I'm a dealer for multiple brands. So I do also sell, and I have to meet minimums of price points. So I'm not undercutting anybody or anything like that in the industry. So that's kind of my position, and this is the type of service that I offer. So if you have any questions at all, you need help with your actual purchase decision, you want to talk to somebody unbiased, this is the type of information that we go over if you were to reach out to me. So thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, again, healthhacksreview.com. You can send me an email, you can give me a call, any of that's okay. Thanks for watching.